It is a video in a schoolroom that shows John Ricks, a 9-year-old boy with autism, talking to a robot.
Hello, John. It's good to see you. Do you want to play?
Yes.
Now? John, what am I looking at?
The ceiling.
What am I looking at?
The floor.
Most excellent. John, what does the cow say? Most excellent. Ha 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 ha.
Well, that's part of a study done out of the Southern New Hampshire University on how using robots could boost the social skills of children on the autism spectrum. Now students in Ottawa can be part of a similar study. The professor behind it, Lundy Lewis, is going to be at the University of Ottawa for the next 4 months as the visiting Fulbright Research Chair in Science and Society. He's going to be showing off his robot later today. And on the line, unfortunately stuck in that horrible traffic in Ottawa this morning, is Anne Yovanovich. She's the mother of a 10-year-old boy who is on the autism spectrum, and she is curious about this study. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
So, Lundy, you have a robot sitting on the desk in front of us. Can you just describe him for us?
Yeah, it's a humanoid robot, which means it's an approximation to a human. It doesn't look just like a human. We have something called the uncanny valley, which means that if a robot looks too much like a human, it just gets creepy, and nobody wants to touch it or mess with it. So this is a humanoid robot that's not uncanny, and it has fingers and arms and feet, and it can understand, and it can reason, and it can listen, and it can speak, depending on how I program it.
Well, in fact, I think you have programmed it to say something for our audience, so let's hear that.
Yeah, I just did this yesterday.
Good morning, Ottawa. It's good to be with you. Do you want to play?
What is the best reaction you've seen from a child when they first meet Gibson the robot?
Oh, wow. One child kept saying something like this: "Wow, that is wicked. That is wicked," over and over again.
It seems a little bit counterintuitive that talking to a robot could help a child learn to interact better in real life. What is the thinking behind this research?
Well, the premise is this, that children and most adults are fascinated by robots, and we sort of leverage that fascination to program the robot to engage in certain kind of activities with the child, in the hopes that the child will learn social skills with the robot, because the robot does not show impatience, doesn't show frustration. I say we hope that the child will learn skills with the robot that will transfer over to the real world.
And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about your son, Misha. What do you think he would make of this robot? You're not here physically, but just hearing what Lundy is saying.
Well, I've actually been following this research for a bit. I know Dr. Lewis is doing this in North America. There's been some research done in Europe as well, and it's really exciting for us. My son is low verbal, so he has very minimal verbal skills, and has a lot of difficulty with what we would call receptive language. So he doesn't really understand what people are saying to him a lot of the time, and he uses other cues to try and figure out what they're saying. So one of the really big benefit for something like this, and why we see this as a real game changer, particularly for kids with low verbal skills, is that most kids, and he does have friends at school, or he has a buddy system at school, and there are kids that work with him on a day-to-day basis, and that's irreplaceable. But most kids will get bored of trying to teach the same thing over and over again. But we know that peer-led interactions are really important for their development. And this is an opportunity for a robot to do the same thing 50 times, and for him to learn from that multiple iteration in a way that's not boring for the other participant, but that gives him what he needs.
And how does that make you feel as a mother? Because I imagine that anything that could help your son verbalize and and improve his social interaction would be great. But at the same time, how does it feel that a robot could do this where maybe a human could not?
Well, I don't think it's binary. I don't think it's one or the other. I mean, one of the things that you learn very quickly when you're dealing with a child at the severe end of the autism spectrum is that it's all about practice. And so what robots provide as a potential for the future is that practice environment. And then you would introduce real people. So you would generalize the skill to other kids in his classroom, kids in the community, adults. But, I mean, it's not a replacement for social interaction. It just gives kids who need a whole lot more practice at socializing the opportunities to do it without sort of, sticking typical kids in an environment that's really uncomfortable for them.
And Professor Lewis, just in 30 seconds, based on the work that you have done in the United States, how much of a difference did you notice as children worked with these robots?
Well, the first thing we notice is that the child does get better over time. We've done a longitudinal study, an 8-month study, and measured the progress of the child. And the child gets more responsive over time, even in the face of the fact that the activities are constantly evolving. So it's an evolutionary type exercise.
Okay, well, it's really interesting to meet you, and we're going to send out some information if people are interested in taking part in this study, which it sounds like Anne is very curious about. Thank you very much to you both. Anne, sorry you're stuck in traffic.
No worries.
That was,
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Lundy Lewis, professor and chair of the Information Technology Department at the Southern New Hampshire University. He's at the University of Ottawa for the next 4 months as a visiting Fulbright research chair. And Anne Yovanovitch has a 10-year-old boy who is also on the autism spectrum. If you are interested in the study, Lundy Lewis is going to be talking more about his work at a luncheon today at the University of Ottawa. There are very few spots available, but we will tweet out a link to that.